It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello.
So, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
No complaints here.
Groovy. Hope everybody out there is doing well. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy this past week?
Well, I'll tell you.
Please do.
I have the last few months I don't want to say gotten into, but I have sort of become aware of YouTube and how much weird and interesting shit there is on YouTube. And I stumbled across something this is finally like the first thing that's been worthy of like bringing up at all on YouTube. There's a lot of weird and interesting stuff you find certain, like the Trauma channel. There's interesting stuff there, and it's just funky and weird. But the thing that's just an example. But the one that I found that really interests me is a channel called Timeless Classic Movies. And what it is it's a huge, as far as I can tell, collection of really old black and white movies, and it's got them categorized by like comedy, horror, drama, noir, stuff like that. And it's just a ton of just really cool old movies that, I mean, a lot of which you look at you've never heard of. And they're all, just about all of them, as far as I can tell, are black and white. And so they're all like from the 30s and 40s, and maybe a few from the 50s. But there's just a gajillion of them. And so I've watched a few already, just kind of just randomly picking, and it's like, wow. And some of them are actually really good too. And they're like I said, there's movies that nobody's heard of in 50 or 60 years, but they're just all there on YouTube.
Cool. I have to check that out. Les?
I too went to YouTube this past week, and I also found that they've got a lot of stuff there. But I started listening to some old albums of the Firesign Theatre. Just on a whim, I said, I wonder if they have anything. And the comedy troupe is from the mid to late 60s. And they gave you titles like Don't Crush That Dwarf, Hand Me the Pliers, Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him, Dear Friends. And they're just funny, I guess you could say, concept albums. They would have a running theme through them, but it's so bizarre, so unusual, that you have to listen to the whole album to go, okay, now I see what they're getting at. And it's just funny stuff. The stories were funny. Things like Sherlock Holmes and the Giant Rat of Sumatra. Who comes up with this stuff? There were 4 members. One has passed, but it's something worth looking into.
That's cool.
That is very cool. I've been, of course, this being October and being the month of Halloween, a lot of scary movies are being shown. Been watching some of those. Some I'm not going to actually mention because they aren't worth mentioning. But Turner Classic Movies, star of the month is Christopher Lee.
Oh, cool.
So every Monday night, they are doing a bunch of movies that has Christopher Lee in them. And this past week, I happened to catch some of the Fu Manchu movies that he did. And the thing is watching those going, yeah, these probably would not be made nowadays.
Not so much, no.
And these were I think 66, 68, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
That late? Wow.
Um, so if you're a big Christopher Lee fan, and who isn't, just a heads up, on Monday nights they're showing Christopher Lee movies on Turner Classic Movies. Probably not the case on Halloween night, which is going to be a Monday, but still, you still have a couple more weeks to check out some movies that probably don't get shown that often. Like I said, Fu Manchu's not one of those that would be shown a hell of a lot nowadays for obvious reasons. Well, for reasons, if you actually look into it, you can see why.
Yeah,
Um,
there might be some racial insensitivity going on there. We'll just leave it at that.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well,
Um,
Sax Rohmer's books were insensitive too, but I do recommend reading those because they were outstanding. They made you think as the plot was going along.
Right, as mysteries go, they were pretty good.
Yes.
I have not had a chance to check it out yet, but this past weekend I had free preview to HBO, so I have recorded the first two episodes of Westworld, which I've heard a lot of good things about. So I can't wait to check them out and then start lamenting the fact that I don't have HBO and I won't be able to watch the rest of the season. But I got the
There are
first.
ways.
Yeah, there are ways, but
There are
I've
even
heard a
there are
lot of
even
good things.
there are even legal ways.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Um,
But we don't know about those.
we always do
well,
stuff legally.
I don't know anything about illegal ways. I can tell you that.
Of course not.
Well, I think someone was inferring something else, but
I think he might have been. Jeez.
yeah. Um, that
No.
hence me making the comment that I don't know illegal ways of doing that. So, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I definitely want to check it out, and we'll see. For this week's episode, we had a real treat for you. We're big fans of this gentleman, Terry Moore, the creator of Strangers of Paradise, Echo, Rachel Rising, and his forthcoming series, Motor Girl, was kind enough to join us for an interview. I was trying to do my best not to stammer the entire time or sound like an idiot, but I enjoyed the interaction with him. He's a great guy.
Yep,
Very fun and very informative.
Yeah, definitely.
he was a perfectly good excuse to put Horror Month on hold for this week.
Yes, yes. Horror Month had a 1 week stay, and I'm sorry, guys, but hey, this is Terry Moore. This is a guy that we dig. So, and it was an opportunity to talk about his forthcoming book. So, without further ado, here's our interview with Terry Moore, and then after the interview, we will do our weekly picks. Enjoy. And we're here with Terry Moore, who's here to talk about his new series, Motor Girl, which comes out November 2nd. First of all, Terry, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Go ahead and, if you could, tell us just a little bit about Motor Girl and where the idea came from.
Well, Motor Girl is sort of an oddball story. I'm not sure what the genre would be. So having just finished about 3.5 years of horror writing, horror story, I wanted to do something just a little bit lighter than contemplating murder day and night. So I had this idea that I'd had a long time. Years ago, I did a sketch with a girl and a gorilla and a motorcycle. And a friend of mine said, if you put all those elements in one comic, everybody would buy it. So I just kind of thought that was funny. And I called her Motor Girl. And I just kind of had it in my back pocket over the last few years. And finally decided it was time to do this story. So when I finished Rachel, I started right away on Motor Girl. And it's basically, the setup is there's a girl, a gorilla, and UFOs. And the gorilla is her invisible friend, kind of like her invisible strength token. And she's working at a junkyard in the middle of the desert. And one night a UFO crashes in the junkyard. And that's kind of how we get started in issue 1.
Cool. So it's kind of a little bit of a palette wash for you after Rachel Rising.
I definitely want to do something a little bit different. You know, it's kind of it's a little bit like being an actor that did something intense. So the next job, you want to do something a little different. It feels like that, you know.
Okay. Is it going to be more of a comedy or just a little bit more lighthearted, fun nature?
Well, I like to bash those two things together.
Okay.
Not quite so dramatically as a 1970s TV show, a sitcom. All those Norman Lear things, you know, that were, 1 minute you spend the first 10 minutes giggling and the last 20 minutes wishing you weren't watching.
Very true.
So I don't know. Like, for instance, the UFOs, I went ahead and went for the low ground, meaning it's just 1950s flying saucers with little guys, and they're kind of like my minions. But the reason this girl has this invisible friend is tragic. She did 3 tours of duty in the military, and on the 3rd one, she was held captive for a year in solitary confinement. The only way she got through it was to come up with this friend of hers, this gorilla. And that's where her strength came from. So now they're bonded. And then this extraordinary thing happens. And it's kind of it's just such a strange recipe that it really intrigues me. And I'm not quite sure, when I first thought of it, I thought, well, where are you going to go with that, Terry? But I came up with something really fun that intrigued me a lot, and it's different than anything I've done before. So I'm really excited about it.
Wow. I was already interested in this, but what you just said makes me even more interested in checking it out.
Let me ask one sort of side question. In the animated series version of Motor Girl, who does the voice of the gorilla?
Let's go with Nick Nolte.
Oh, okay. I like it.
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah.
See, and now we're gonna read that, and that's how we're gonna hear it, and it's gonna make the whole thing.
I would go with one of those gravelly voices, low and all that, as opposed to Mike Tyson. So Nick Nolte or Thomas Church, they would have been good.
Ooh. Okay.
Or Gina Davis, she has a low voice.
I want to congratulate you again for doing something very diverse. It's definitely off from your previous items, which were enjoyable stories and incomparable characters. This one I'm ready for too.
Thank you. I feel like the best way to keep working is to have something I'm really looking forward to every day, which means, finding new path, always trying to find a new path. So if I kept making red wagons every day, I think we'd all get a little bored. So it's fun to figure out the new things.
To challenge yourself, would you say? You've gone different paths. You've gone from just Strangers in Paradise to Echo to Rachel Rising to this. They're all different, but the only thing that's really the same are the characters are so compelling.
Well, one thing that I see a continuity in my work is all my stories are about hope. So we present these challenges, and my characters navigate their way through the challenge. And I like to have a tone of hope to the story. The characters keep finding the strength to get up every morning and try again. And I find that to be the greatest courage there is. So I like to represent that. I think it's one of the best things about humanity. But on a more less deep level, I've noticed that all of my stories are about women taking the power back in their life. I'm not that interested in writing about how great men are. There's enough books about that. So I focus on the challenge of being a woman on this planet and striving and fighting to have a life and meaning and love and everything people, deserve. So those are the two common threads that I find in my stories. And the rest is just setups, it's an unusual day here or an unusual day there. Ordinary people facing unusual challenges. That's what I'm most interested in. That and apocalypse stories.
It's always good to toss one of those in.
Oh, there's nothing like the big meteor to get everybody to stand up from the lunch table and do something silly. So, yeah.
And if that fails, we'll just give a 10-year-old the sword of Satan and just sort of let her run around for a while.
Here, kid, have fun. Don't do anything Daddy wouldn't do.
But I'm an orphan. Oh, don't worry. It's okay.
How about this? To paraphrase Martin Mull, which comes first, the words or the lyrics? In this way, which comes first, a design or a thought?
Neither. The first thing is a desire. Like, for instance, on Motor Girl, the desire was to work in the genre of Harvey. Having an invisible friend is a genre. There's a lot of stories that have been done about that. And I have always loved that old Broadway play and movie, Harvey. I thought it was charming and there was a lot left unexplored. So that was my basic desire. In the same way that, say, Agatha Christie had a desire to write about people doing something drastic, trying to get away with it, and somebody else tries to figure it out. And that terrible feeling of a stranger slowly, carefully unveiling the one secret you want hidden. That's what her mysteries are about. So you have that generic desire, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, they had the desire to make melodies and entertain with them. And that's what made them sit down and figure out specific songs and learn their guitars and, figure out what their style was going to be. So there's some sort of desire there first, And apparently Martin Mull's desire was to give us questions we can't answer.
So I remember not long ago reading something where you had said you were not interested in doing the longer form stories anymore, or at least not for a little while. You wanted to take a break and do shorter stuff. How many issues do you expect Motor Girl to be at this point?
Well, the plan is to go through 2017. And then 2018 is the 25th anniversary of Strangers in Paradise. So I'm going to be all about Strangers in Paradise that year. So I will continue to do Motor Girl through 2017. And that's as far as I'm planning right now. That'll be somewhere 6, 8 to 12 issues, somewhere in there, depending on how efficient I am with the story, or if I see, if I get sidewinded with some tangent or something. I tend to find a tangent and look at it for a little bit. I'm easily distracted in my stories.
Oh, as you said, as normal people often are.
It's like a road trip. I know my beginning and my end, and I know the big beats that I'm going to hit. But then once you start driving, crap happens. And you see stuff and you stare at it and you want to stop and learn more about it. And I think that's one of the reasons people write, is just to find the surprises is what keeps you going. If there were no surprises during the writing process, we would just be journalists.
Very good point. I like that idea. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yes, I agree. I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome. That'll be a quarter, please.
It's in the mail. Can I pay you in stamps?
Yes, we love stamps, yes.
Okay.
Upside down Jennies, backward Jennies.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Great Apes of America, any of those.
Before we started doing the interview, I kind of talked about your company, Abstract Studios, and how it's you and your wife Robin trying to do basically everything. And honestly, I commend you because I know that's a lot of work. But how tough is it to be able to put together a book that with having to deal with the business sides of the industry, and knowing you need to go to conventions. I know you were at New York Comic Con to promote the books and all that. How tough is that when it's just yourself, or in this case, you and Robin?
Well, it's more than a job, it's a lifestyle. It's just what you do day and night. We get up, do it until we go to bed, and it's been that way for 23 years. So it's you have to just dedicate yourself to it. And I found that within a couple of years of starting off, I knew that it was more than I could handle by myself. So I enlisted my wife into it. And that tends to be the routine of many artists with lifelong careers. They have a significant other that helps them navigate and handle everything. So that's worked for us very well. We have quite a routine. I just focus on everything creative, and my wife focuses on the business. And that she was always that kind of person anyway. So it's a good yin and yang thing. And between the two of us, we kind of cover the bases, but we do stay very busy. Self-publishing is a challenge because there's a lot of expense to publishing books. Not just your first comic, but when you're 20 years down the road, you have to keep your entire catalog in print in order to keep that on the shelves and selling it. So now I have all these trades and omnibus and things like that need to be printed, and those printing bills are huge. So it's just an ongoing process. You're balancing all the plates and trying to stay on deadline with the book, keep the books coming out, and then go to the shows. This year I did 11 shows, and you do that to stay relevant because whatever you did last year is so over that you have to be a part of the now. The world is changing. The world constantly wants to turn away. So you have to be in the now. You have to be doing something this week and planning next week. And that's the permanent perennial stance that you have to take with the work. I see a lot of cartoonists that, did something cool, but it was a while ago, and they're still trying to ride that. And, man, it just seems like every month it's a whole new generation of kids that know nothing about what you did last year. And they walk up to you and say, "Who are you? What do you do?" So you got to be working, with your head in the now and keep making books, keep making material. And it's kind of fun, It's kind of like riding the surf. You want to stay on the tip of the wave and on the front of the board and stay involved, And that's been the biggest challenge of just doing it ourselves. But the best thing about just being a small company is that it's easy for us to turn on a dime and do what we want to do. And it doesn't take us all year to figure something out. We don't have to run it by a committee. So I get to focus on what I love, and somehow we managed to survive the storms over the last 20 years. The industry's changed a lot, and here we are. We're still here. So that's good.
You're your own committee.
There you go.
I am my own committee. Me and all my voices.
Something that I kind of popped in my head when you were talking about staying relevant nowadays. Has the internet and social media made that easier, or has that made it worse? because with the social media, you may be reaching eyes that you couldn't reach before, but with everything being so, what happened a minute ago is now yesterday, and what's going to happen in a minute from now. So things are now moving even faster with that. So is the internet and social media, has that good thing, bad thing, or is it a blessing and a curse?
C, a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
It's a blessing in that, yes, now everybody can participate in getting the news the same day, whether you're in a big city in America or you're in the outback of Australia. You can see the sketch I posted today. I like that. I like the fact that I can draw something, put it online, and anybody who's interested could see it within the minute I put it online, wherever they are in the world. That's cool. That's a lot of power too. So you have to be very careful and responsible with what you do. I've just bitten my tongue off, making sure I try so hard not to get involved in the political conversations and things like that, because that's not why people are following me. The curse is I don't use social media like a private individual spouting off my opinions. I just use it as a way to help people connect with my art and my books, which is more important than my opinion anyway. This whole thing about social media and how fast it's got the world on a clicker, this so much reminds me of a Robert Heinlein short story that I read back in the 60s or 70s when he wrote it, about a world where people could get rich and broke 4 times in one night, that the world completely changed every 24 hours because it eventually got so fast. And he was, without knowing what to call it, he was talking about an internet type system. So the dynamic that I'm working with here these days with the internet, social media versus this long-term shelf life world of print. And which one do you want to be? Do you want to be Kim Kardashian that has to live on daily news, or do you want to be a novelist who lives on a lifelong career? Somewhere in the middle there is, comic books and cartoonists and all that. So I kind of watch both of those canaries, and when one catches flame or fire, I back off, and I'm trying to dance in the middle again, just like everything else in my career. I'm in the middle, trying not to get shot at. So I try to keep relevant to the social media stuff and offer stuff in there, but it's all meant to provide a long-term career. I would like to think that if I left all my social media tomorrow, that I would still be able to sell books and live quietly in a farm in Woodstock or something and still sell books somehow. I don't actually live for the PR side of the business. It's not what gets me off. What I'm working for and loving is getting rewarded from is the books and people who respond to them. I don't care what medium they're on or what medium we communicate. Over a lifetime, you're going to be through a lot of mediums. For me, it's just about the story, getting them made, hoping people enjoy them. I don't care what tool I use to get that done.
So given all of that business stuff, I do have one thing I'm curious about. How, and also kind of tangenting off of the social media, what is kind of your reaction to the whole crowdfunding thing that's happening?
It's an extraordinary dynamic. Crowdfunding is extraordinary. And it shows the kindness of strangers and the interest of people to support the arts, I think. So that's a wonderful thing. And we've had some good things come from that. Really good books have come from that, and good works, movie. It's not something I've tried because I'm convinced that if I attempted a Kickstarter, that only 7 people would donate. So I think it's great when people do it, and I like hearing their success stories, and I'm glad it works. I don't know if it'll be a permanent fixture in our lives now. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder. It would be interesting to me to see how someone in your position, from a business sense, could use that, and how likely it would be that it could go horrifically wrong and just destroy things. And I don't know. It seems like it could almost go in the wrong direction. So
It definitely could. Yeah.
So I kind of applaud the
Because
fact that you don't do it.
Yeah, you could, put up a Kickstarter and let everybody know about it, and it fails miserably, and that's embarrassing. So I think you have to have a certain attitude. You're rolling the dice. We tend to hear about a lot of success stories, and the failures, I think, want to just fade away quietly, but it's not a guarantee.
What is your feeling on digital? What access for people for reading either your material or novels or whatever it could be?
Well, I think digital is great. It's a format that has to exist nowadays, and my sole digital outlet right now is Comixology through Amazon. And when they took me on board, it was like getting a whole new bookshop. So it increased my orders. And the great thing about digital is that, when people talk about comic shops and brick and mortar, they're always, the basic rule is you have to live within driving distance of a brick and mortar. But think about all the people that do not live in an American urban setting. A lot of people live in rural settings, 100 miles from a store or more, and we're releasing our comics in America on a Wednesday, and now that we're a global community in pop culture, all those people like us around the world want to be reading that issue the same day so that they can get on social media and, share the fun of talking about what came out today. Digital has allowed that. You can live in the middle of Australia and get your comics on Wednesday and go online and talk to everybody else in America about it. That's great. Also, if you want to, read Alan Moore's From Hell and you don't want to drag that book with you on a plane flight, you just have it on your iPad. And I mean, the convenience is unquestionable. And then if you fall in love with something and want it on your shelf and want to smell the ink, you can buy, the book and have a shelf of just your favorite books. You don't have to actually kill a tree every time you want to just glance at something, and even if you don't like it, So that's very good. Digital is fantastic. I still love books. I love paper and ink. But there's no questioning that digital is fantastic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And of course, this comes from the guy who doesn't read a lot of digital. So.
I don't either, actually. I don't have an iPad, and it's, I'm not reading anything digitally. But man, it's obviously it's out there and it's great. So.
Right, other people are, and it adds a lot of access, and that can't be a bad thing, right?
I spend a lot of time in airports and airplanes, and most of what I see is iPad. And my wife lives on her iPad, so.
Well, it's so convenient because you can. I mean, if you bring a book, you've got a book, but if you bring an iPad, you could have 5,000 books in there.
Exactly.
And then you've spend 3 hours of the flight trying to decide what to read, but hey, you're having fun, right?
Well, you can have all those books on your iPad and ignore them and watch the movie you downloaded.
Absolutely. A movie version of From Hell.
Wasn't bad.
I thought it was all right, yeah.
It was okay. I'll watch it.
That is a big, heavy book, too. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't want to lug that thing around.
Well, I have this Rachel Rising omnibus, and it weighs 6 pounds. I've taken it out to a couple of shows already, and people wait until the end of the day to come buy it because they don't want to carry it around all day.
They're smart.
So it's a real factor, and that's only
Yeah.
6 pounds. First, I can't call them all slackers, but yeah, people think about it. I don't want to drag that around. It looks like the family Bible. So it's a thick book.
Yes, I have my copy of it here in front of me.
Available now in stores, folks. And
Yes.
and you can get on Terry's website and get it there. Shipped
Yes,
to
you
your
can.
door.
Yes, please do.
Christmas is coming up, so
Yes, so it would make a lovely
will-
Christmas gift. There you go.
Well, it'd make a wonderful Halloween gift too. Drop one of these
Definitely.
omnibuses in all those little kids' sack.
There you go.
Make their day.
Make their day and crush their toes at the same time.
Hmm.
if I may ask about your art, is there somebody that you were influenced by?
Yeah, my first influence was Charles Schulz and Peanuts. Not the art, but the world building that he did as an artist, as a cartoonist. The fact that you could use cartooning to build a world that was better than ours, and as a cartoonist, you could live there daily. He got to spend 50 years of his life living in the Peanuts neighborhood with those kids. So that was the gift, that he had. That inspired me as an artist more than anything. I think that's just how I'm wired. If I pick up a pencil, I'm going to try to build a world with it, not just draw a sketch, a pinup. And when I started playing guitar when I was 13, I learned 3 chords and wrote a song with them. I immediately went to songwriting, as opposed to like, oh, let's figure out how to run this neck. So I'm just kind of interested in making things. So I was interested in artists that could do that. Some of the artists that I admired had ongoing either storytelling skills, like Alex Raymond was a terrific storyteller, very sophisticated camera eye in his work, in his comic strips. And then even back to the painters, for the turn of the century painters, N.C. Wyeth, he told stories. He told adventure stories in his paintings, that was very inspiring. It continues to inspire me, those guys. All the illustrators from the magazine era, the American illustrators, were very inspiring. James Montgomery Flagg, Howard Chandler Christie, these guys all told stories. That's why people used them to illustrate magazine articles and short stories. And when you say magazine articles, it wasn't, some cosmopolitan article. It was, an installment from Sherlock Holmes or Henry, or, it's just where you got your short stories back then. So the illustrations were beautiful and respected. I guess that's what I liked. One of my favorite comic strips in the newspapers was Gasoline Alley back in the early days, because the guy built a whole neighborhood and the families, and it was the equivalent of a long-running TV series now,
Yes, because they grew up in the
Mhm.
comic series,
Yes.
and it was all connected. There was no like a comedy on television where two people fight, they become friends at the end of the episode, but next week they're fighting again,
Yeah.
and you just look at it and go, "I thought you two were best buddies." And
Yeah, what you're describing is the contemporary type of show, and that's where the dog is eating its tail over and over. They're just rehashing the formulas over and over. But back in the earlier days of the magazine illustrators and the cartoonists and all that, they were inventing the rules. They were making up the new rules. And because they weren't coming from a previous generation, their influences were more literary. So their marks were higher, their goals were higher, their skills and their chops were higher. The first people to make those beautiful cartoon strips probably went to art school and trained at the same places that the great painters did. A lot of them did, Norman Rockwell people and all that. Norman Rockwell was a terrific cartoonist when he wanted to do pen and ink work and do caricatures and all that. He was just terrific. So, that's where that was the first wave, for me, not literally, but for me. I don't know. I've kind of never forgotten those guys, even though a lot of time has passed between the excitement of discovering them in my 20s to now. I still hold those guys at the top of the food chain. So I'm not very influenced by the 9th generation of Kirby grandkids, Kirby grandkid artists. I'm more influenced by the people that made the rules than by the people who have perfected them and gotten faster at it,
I would like to say that I've always enjoyed your expressions on your characters. You have a way of getting everything across just by a look or either by the eyes or by the mouth, and it just floors me every time to see what you can accomplish, what you have accomplished with just an expression. And there are so many artists out there now that don't convey a thought unless they're punching someone or flying or something. It just, I want to thank you because I'm sorry, I'm fawning, but I just thoroughly enjoy your work at the expressions and such.
Well, thank you. That comes from several influences. Growing up loving cartooning, obviously Chuck Jones cartoons were a big influence on me. And then also those illustrators that I talked about, they were all telling stories, so they had a lot of expression in their figures. But also my previous career as a TV editor. Your whole job in TV, if you're cutting stories, I was a story cutter, is to find those expressive moments from the actors and not lose any of that and find the best of it. So I spent a lot of years in a dark room looking at actor portrayals and a frame at a time, and it teaches you how the face works and how to be broad and subtle and all that. So just kind of a perfect storm of all those different influences coming together to make my style. And sometimes I feel like a director who has good actors. And sometimes I feel like I am the character and I can just feel it. So I don't know, you just pour yourself into it and you don't stop erasing and redrawing until you get it. I've spent all day on one panel before. I'm very anal about it. It's not easy. So you just you don't move on until you get it.
Do you really draw one page at a time in order, or will you sometimes jump ahead to another scene if you need a break from something?
Well, no, I will draw my scene in linear order from page 1 to the last page of that scene. Okay. And a typical issue may have several scenes in it. I may rearrange the scenes when I get all the pages done. When I did, for instance, the first issue of Strangers in Paradise, I actually drew the middle scene first. Then thought, well, I need a scene ahead of that to set it up, and then I needed another scene in front of that. I ended up, drawing a number of pages to start the story off better, and then, working my way forward. I think non-linear, but I work linear.
Okay.
I think it helps me control the pacing and the flow. I know a lot of cartoonists who work piecemeal. I'll go through and do all the heads, then I go through and do all the knees. I go through and do all the left buttock, and then I go through and do all the right buttock. That doesn't work for me. I don't want to be an assembly line. I want to pour myself into it and, because I think it's a waterfall effect. You may find an expression in panel 2 that will change what you do in panel 3. So you don't want to paint yourself into a corner and get screwed and not have that option.
So let me ask you this. and this is probably going to be a dumb question because I just kind of listening to you, to what you were just saying. When you approach an issue, is it pretty much I know what I want to accomplish, and you don't actually write like say write a script, or do you just go, okay, this page I want this accomplished, and then that's how I go as a cartoonist.
Yeah, I often work as a cartoonist. I write and draw at the same time. But there are times where it's tricky and I need to figure out the details, so I will write it out. And like if it's particularly important conversation or it's tricky with other factors going on, I typically, a lot of times I will write a script out and I just write it in Final Draft, and it looks like a 30-minute TV show. I write it just in the same script format. But there have been so many times I've done that. Then I start drawing page one, and the faces I draw on page one are better than I thought I was going to get, but they look like they said something else. So I change the dialogue, and that changes everything. Then I get a better idea, and I have to throw the script away, and I just wasted 3 days writing a script that's not as good as the idea I have now. So that's one of the advantages of being the only creator, the cartoonist guy, that I can throw away the writer's script and go with the new, better idea at the drop of a hat. I do that a lot. So I try not to waste time.
And that also adds the challenge of being the one to decide which is the best idea. Which of the 6 ideas you came up with in the last 30 minutes is the best one to go with?
The best idea is the one that you haven't seen yet, because I'm very aware that you guys have seen every show, seen every movie I've seen, you've read every book I've read. So if I start laying down tropes and cliches, your eyes are going to glaze over and I've lost you. And the minute I can surprise you in the story or with what a character says, boom, you're paying attention again. So that's my batting average. My batting average is how much in the issue is new material that you haven't quite seen before. How much in the issue is this woman who you want to profile as so-and-so, but she keeps surprising you. She says something that you've maybe never seen anybody like that say that before. That's when I'm hitting for the fences and entertaining you. So that's the watermark that I'm trying to get with every issue. Is a lot of times my setups are mundane. It's so hard to come up with a sequence of events that hasn't been done. What I can surprise you with is characters and what they do and what they decide and what they say. So that's the better idea. Anything that is fresh and new, especially if it's visual you've never seen. Now that's hard.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to have a 10-year-old girl say something you've never seen a 10-year-old say than it is for me to show you a visual scene that you have never seen in a movie or in a photograph or in a comic. And I've only got a handful of those in my work, but when I can figure them out, man, that's a good day.
Yeah, and speaking of 10-year-old girls, if you don't mind me jumping over to Rachel Rising for a second.
Yeah, there's a reason we mentioned 10-year-old girl here.
Yeah. I'm just really curious. Where does an inspiration come from for a character like Zoe?
Well, it comes from something that fascinated me a long time ago. There was this actor. He was a sweet man. I forget his name. He was a really large, strong African-American guy. He was a wonderful actor, and he was able to do a perfect impression of a child, a little girl. And he could also do Donna Summer and all this other stuff. Well, so it made me think about people like Mike Nichols, the great director. He loved working on Broadway, and I imagine Mike Nichols with his cast in front of him. Everybody has a script, and it's the show is perfectly typecast. And then he says, "Okay, everybody, pass your script. One actor to the right. Now let's do the scene again." And so now suddenly, the 10-year-old girl has to be the father, and the guy who was playing the villain is now the mother. And I mean, suddenly it's very interesting to watch this run through of the play. So that's how I came up with the idea for Strangers in Paradise, just to have a love triangle and miscast it. Have the three main characters in a love triangle pass their scripts one to the right, and you get my cast. So when it came time to do a horror story, instead of doing the usual horror movie where the villain is some twisted old fart or a twisted young fart, I made it the 10-year-old girl next door at the pigtails. And instead of making her just the usual horror girl of she's actually a monster inside or she's a midget, I made her just an actual, behaving like a 10-year-old girl, and there's a lot of charming things about her. Her personality has a charming effect to it. Then I come up with a legitimate reason for why she's doing what she's doing. I do take the responsibility away from a child and give it to a 50-year-old woman. But, it's just turning things on their head that makes them more fun sometimes in the creative world. And that was one of the cases. Zoe I'm tired of, predators and serial killers being the scariest guy in town. Have it be the girl next door that you turn your back on in the kitchen. Oh, that was a mistake. And instead of it being, the 10-foot butcher knife or the shotgun that is your worst enemy in the house, let it be the saran wrap. Learn to fear saran wrap.
It's dangerous stuff, really.
It can put you down and you'll be gone in about 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yay.
I spent 3.5 years figuring out ways to kill people with just what items were at hand, I knew I had to stop working on the series when I was on an airplane, standing in the aisle in line for the bathroom at the back, and I was standing next to a guy in his seat, and he was sleeping with his mouth open, head back, mouth open, wide open. And I was looking at him thinking, someday, maybe soon, somebody's going to sew your mouth shut at your weight to keep it from falling open like that. And I know the stitch. That's when I knew it was time to stop writing murder stories.
Oh, yeah, I can see where that might make you uncomfortable.
Yep.
Somewhat of a revelation.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at people as cadavers, walking cadavers, and that's how murder mystery people have to think, but it gets to you after a while. You need a break.
Well, yeah, and it's hard. I mean, you talk about hope as a major focus of your work, and it you kind of find it hard to keep the hope up when you're thinking that.
I know, and it's because I need it.
Right.
Yeah, it's that dichotomy that those two extremes. You put them in the same room. You put a proton and a neutron in a room, and boom, you've got an atom. Is that true? I don't know. That's just bullshit I just spat out.
Sounded good. Hey.
Depends what those protons and neutrons do, but okay.
Well, a bunch of them form together to make Scarlett Johansson. You got a problem with
that? No. None whatsoever. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any final questions?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah. Okay. Terry, thank you again for joining us. I had a good time with this. I'm sure you guys did as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on your radar and having me on your show. And I appreciate the good word. You guys are the advertising that I have. Being a self-publisher, I don't have a advertising budget. So, hopefully we can use the waterfall effect of one conversation is heard a lot of times on the internet, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, we will do our darndest to spread the word of Motor Girl, which comes out November 2nd at your favorite local comic shop or online or at Terry Moore. Is it terrymoore.com?
terrymoreart.com.
Okay, there we go. Awesome. Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Terry.
And we are back, and it's time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Mike.
That's me. And I am leading off with a Dark Horse book this week. There's a title called Black Hammer, and issue number 4 is coming out this week. It is written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Dean Ormston. And if you're not familiar, this is a story in which a group of superheroes in the beginning is locked in a huge battle to save their city, and after many trials and tribulations, they win the battle and are instantly transported away to this mysterious farm town that they can't seem to leave. And when we join our heroes in this story, they've been there for several years, essentially trapped. They've been there long enough to understand that they're trapped there wherever they are, and except for one of their members, who, as far as they know, died at the end of the battle. And it turns out I don't want to spoil too much, but they were transported, and the daughter of the missing member is now attempting to find them. She has reason to believe that they're still alive somewhere, and she's trying to find them. And they are mostly trying to escape. One of the characters isn't sure he wants to, but the rest of them are all being driven nuts by this place. And so, like I said, issue 4 is coming out, and it promises to be a whole lot of fun. It's a really interesting story, the way it's being set up. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Definitely a little different than the standard fare. I agree.
It is a fun twist on the superhero stuff, for
Mhm.
sure.
Well, it is Lemire, so yeah.
Right.
Cool. Les.
My first choice comes from Dark Circle, which is a part of Archie Comics. This is Black Hood number 1. The writer is Dwayne Straczynski, and the art is by Greg Scott. Hopefully you have read the earlier issues of Black Hood, which started in the 70s. Am I right there, Thomas? Or?
He's actually been around since the 50s. It's just more, but he was more of a standard superhero, where the last 20 to 30 years they've kind of did a little bit more of a vigilante kind of take.
Yes. In this one, they pick it up after the last series that Dark Circle did. And for the start of this one, the Black Hood is no more. He is a vigilante, but they believe that the man that was the Black Hood is dead. They believe this. But there are rumors that the policeman that was the Black Hood is still out there. The twist on this now is an assassin called the Nobody tries to flush him out. I'm looking forward to this one. This is a jumping on point, so I'm gonna recommend it and give it a try.
Yeah, I liked the last series. It was kind of a different take. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with this, because I'm reminded of the Impact version back in, was it the 90s?
Yes, the EC version.
Well, yeah, DC put it out, but it was an imprint called Impact. Yes. And the thing is, with that version of the Black Hood, was the Hood was possessed essentially by, I don't know when you call it, the spirits or the essence of the previous wearers. So, like, if you're wearing the Hood, you're also encountering the essence of everybody else who is wore that Black Hood. And that was kind of an interesting take. I don't know if they're going to go down that road with this one. They didn't show that I don't remember them showing that in the first series, but who knows? So, but yeah, I've been digging Dark Circle. My only problem is there's been issues with them putting them out. There's been delays and stuff, and it kind of kills interest. We've kind of discussed that in a previous episode, but I did enjoy it.
Well, hopefully this will run strong then, and even incite Dark Circle to push the other titles a little faster.
Right.
Don't wait for a year between issues.
Right. Cool. My first choice is from IDW, new series called Star Trek Boldly Gold. And this is taken up right after the events of Star Trek Beyond. And they're bringing Mike Johnson back, who was the writer of the previous series that I really dug. Not only did I like his twists and turns on some of the classic stories from the original series, but his original stories as well. So I'm interested in seeing where he goes with this, although I have not seen Star Trek Beyond, so I'm hoping I'm not going to be too lost when this thing starts up. And he is joined by Tony Chastain as the illustrator. The name's not ringing a bell. He may have been on the previous series at one point, but it's not ringing a bell right now. But we'll see. It ought to be a fun ride. Like I said, I've enjoyed Mike's writing, so.
Yep.
Good choice.
Should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of Mike.
Different Mike. Totally.
Yeah, different Mike. Yeah.
This
totally
Mike,
different Mike.
This Mike can't draw to save his life. But anyway, well.
Right.
Either way.
Yeah.
Don't tell my employer I said that. But so my other pick is a Dynamite book, and it is Pathfinder Worldscape #1. The writer on this one is Eric Mona. The art is by Jonathan Lau, and I have been following the Pathfinder series for a while, pretty much since it started, since Jim Zub started it up, and the folks who have taken over from Zub have done a really nice job with this series. And this one is a little different, and I keep saying I don't usually go for these, but apparently I'm starting to go for these. This is actually kind of a crossover event. This crosses over the Pathfinder gang with, and here's the list: Red Sonja, John Carter, and Tarzan. And so,
interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm curious. I'm interested. I'm on board. I want to see how they manage to twist 4 different worlds together in a way that will deal out a fun story.
I think I'm in on that now.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Here I am twisting arms.
There you go. There you go. Les.
Well, I'm not going to twist arms or twist worlds, but from Boom Studios is Herobear and the Kid 2016 Fall Special. Herobear and the Kid have been around for several years with either small story arcs or specials. It's similar to Calvin and Hobbes. Tyler has his stuffed bear, and he believes that the stuffed bear is Herobear. So the two of them are on escapades together. In this one, Tyler and Herobear are able to stop the dinosaurs that are attacking the parade. But the question is, at what cost? So we get to see a finite story in this one special, yet it's going to be in all ages, and it just intrigues me to fight dinosaurs in a parade, or at a parade. So I'm going to endorse this one too.
Yeah, I've checked out some of the specials that have come out in the last couple of years, and It's a cute book. I definitely like it, and yeah, it's a good choice.
Thanks.
hmm My second choice is cute in a way, but maybe not so much. But it's from Chapter House Comics. It's called Die Kitty Die. This was actually a successful Kickstarter that's now been brought over to a publisher. It's written by Dan Parrott and Fernando Ruiz, and Fernando does the art. And if those names sound familiar to you, they've both done work for Archie. Dan is actually the creator of Life with Kevin. The premise of the series is Kitty Ravencraft is a young witch who is a star of her own comic book series. And the publisher decides to try to increase sales by having the character kill it off, but thinks, hey, things would really take off if they actually kill off Kitty in real life. So that's pretty much the premise of the series, and it sounds goofy, but it ought to be a little fun.
It will be interesting the way they direct this.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a cool series.
Yep.
I think
like
so
it.
too.
Sounds like it.
Alrighty, any honorable mentions this week?
Just one that I can see right now, and at Free Comic Book Day earlier this year, there was a book out called Science Comics, and a few pages of it were included, and the graphic novel is coming out called Science Comics Volcanoes. This too is a book that will be all ages, and you even get to learn a little bit about volcanoes and the like.
Sounds
So
explosive.
it comes out in both hardcover and softcover. So hopefully this book by first, second, I think will be something to check into.
Awesome.
Neat.
Alrighty. Any other honorable mentions? Or are there too many to mention?
There's too many to mention, man. The list for that next week is just brutal. There's so much stuff.
Yeah.
So much
Yes.
awesome stuff. How are we ever going to survive?
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Take a second mortgage.
No kidding.
Any special mentions for this week? I have one, but do y'all have one? Any?
I was just gonna, when we get around to that part, I was gonna throw out a brief shout out to Shane from the Now That I'm Older podcast for hollering at us on Twitter.
Awesome. Okay. Any special mentions from you, Les?
No, sir. Nothing here.
Okay. My special mention is it's almost time. Halloween Comic Fest is right around the corner. It's Saturday, October 29th. Hopefully you guys are aware of this. Hopefully your local comic store has made you aware of that and have got signage up showing, letting you know, or have posted some things on social media. And if you don't have if you're looking for a store that's near you that's participating, you can always go to www.halloweencomicfest.com, and there will be a tab there to where you can look for a comic shop that's near you that will be participating this year. This is the third year. There's how many? Is there about 20 something titles this year? There's some that are mini comics and then some that are regular sizes. And of course there will be other fun activities. There will be a costume contest that's involving Diamond distributors. And I'm sure your local stores will be having other special events and special guests. So just want to make y'all aware that is coming up. Let's get the Hot Comic Fest hype going.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, any shout outs? I know Mike has already done one. Any other shout outs?
No, sir.
Once again, I want to thank Terry Moore for joining us this week. That was fun. Still trying to kind of get off cloud 9. A shout out to Manny the Martyr for our awesome music. Thank you guys. There's links to their page in our show notes, and if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofgeeks.net, go to our podcast page. There is a link there. You can see their logo. You can click on that and find out more information about the band. Go check them out. And as always, we want to thank Potter and Family, #PotterandFamily, on Twitter for spreading the word of the Fellowship. A lot of great people out there who are doing their own podcast and taking some time out to show us the love, and we're doing our darndest to return that love to them. Thank you guys. If you're looking for a podcast, just go to Twitter, do a search, #PotterandFamily, and just about anything you can think of, I'm sure there's a podcast for it. Or if there's not, it's probably going to happen real quick. A lot of good people out there, a lot of good shows. Go check them out.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, thank you, dear listeners. Thank you for downloading and listening to our episodes. It's very much appreciated. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please, we always want to hear what you have to say. And there are several ways you can reach us. You can go to our website, www.thefellowshipofgeeks.net, and go to our About Us page. There is a contact form, or you can email us, email@thefellowshipofgeeks.net. And there's always social media, where we are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, or on Twitter, @FellowshipGeeks. Feel free to follow us and let us know what you think about our shows and whatever questions you may have, questions or comments you may have. Mikey has his own Twitter page, @MikeyGeek, and I have one as well, @TomTCGeek. Please follow us and let us know what you think.
Yeah, holler at us and let us know what your plans for Halloween are. Not that we're trying to invite ourselves along or anything, but you know.
Yeah, there you go. What's your plans for Halloween? Yay! And of course, if you're downloading us from iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, please rate us, and if you feel like it, go ahead and leave a comment. That would be very much appreciated. Let them know what you think of our show.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget the YouTube.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're also our episodes are now on YouTube, so
every week.
Feel free to go check us out there.
You can listen there. You can comment. You can thumbs up and do that, and the other thing if you have to. But you know.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else?
Just thanks, everybody.
I iterate.
Sounding painful.
Wow.
Beep, beep. With that, we thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it. We love you guys. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook @The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter @Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,